let's just answer one question from the homework, then we'll get started. And while our application is deploying or doing something, also we can answer other questions. So, and if you go to the blog, I hope all of you know it by now, MuleSoftenthusiast.com. So we have under complete MuleSoft developer course. I'm trying to organize the video so that you can easily get them if you want to study a specific topic. And here under the design, develop, and deploy, we have applied various policies and we have a homework also. So let's answer these questions here. These are very important questions. So until others join, just for now, before we get started for today's class, let's answer this one. How do you make sure clients don't negatively impact your API by sending unnecessary query parameters and headers? So the question is, let's say you have an application and maybe it expects one query parameter and 3-4 headers maybe. But how do you make sure clients don't send unnecessary query parameters, which could be very long and could impact your application negatively, or even it could make it to be down? So how do you make sure in your configuration, how do you make sure that when there are such requests that the API blocks them even without running the actual flow? So who can answer this question? Yes, perfect. Yeah, so we use strict validation. Thank you, Hatish. And the API kit configuration in the interface, we have the API kit router. And if you just click, if I just click here, there is this configuration, right? So we have this router configuration. So under the router configuration, you have to enable query parameter strict validation and header strict validation. So if you check this query parameter strict validation, and if you send query parameters that are not included in the RAML specification, then it is going to error out. So in today's class, let me show you my design center. I slightly modified the RAML specification we built before. So in our query parameters, we have this one. We work on this together. Like we added query parameter data to give us the data, W3 schools data, and we can specify customers, orders, up to categories. We added this one. And I also added another query parameter called format. This format is like what should be the response, what should be the format of the response. So I added JSON, XML, CSV, and again, the RAML specification, I imported it to Anypoint Studio and created, like we did together last time, using the best practices. I created error.xml, global.xml, implementation.xml, and interface. So the interface, this one that we built together, it is just the same, but in the implementation, I slightly modified it. So what I have done is, there is transform message here. This transform message, as you can see, it reads the data from the main source, from the source main resources. I added the W3 schools folder, and under it, I added all the data sets. So when we pass the data as a query parameter, the data we want as a query parameter, it will capture it here. And using that query parameter, we are reading the data here. Let me mute you for now. Okay. So that's what I have done. So I see the format. I'm creating another variable called format here, and the format is attributes.queryparameters.format. The data is attributes dot query params dot data, and the format is attributes dot query params dot format. So by now, such things should be very clear for you. So this application, it expects us to query params, data and format. And in the configuration, if you go to the global .xml, I have this router configuration. If you just see it, since I checked the query parameter strict validation, if I send any query parameters except format and data, then it is going to say bad query. It will fail right away. So yeah, the answer is that for this question. For the first question, the answer is strict validation. Query parameters and headers, strict validation should be the answer. So we'll come to the other questions, but let's get started with today's session, and we will see the other questions also while we are deploying our application. Since in the middle, while we deploy applications, it will take some time. We'll get back to these questions. Okay, perfect. So today, what are we looking at? Today, we are looking at deploying to Cloud Hub. What are the different ways that we deploy our applications to Cloud Hub, and which ones are more commonly used, or when we use them, is what we are going to discuss. So far, we have seen deploying directly from Anypoint Studio, right? If you have added your username and password of your Anypoint Studio account, you can come to your application here. So this is my application, and I can just right-click on it, right? This one we have seen already. Right-click on it, go down, go to Anypoint platform, and then deploy to Cloud Hub. Then it brings this screen for us. On the top, if we have different environments, we select the environment we need here. Then we give it a name here. We have seen so far Cloud Hub only. So you give it a name here. And the runtime version, it picks it itself. It detects it from the application. And you specify the worker size and number of workers we said. Increasing the worker size is called vertical scaling vertically, like making it bigger is scaling vertically, whereas increasing the number of workers here, using more workers is scaling horizontally, and usually it is economical to scale horizontally, to have more workers of 0.1 or 0.2 vCores than having a single worker of size 2 vCores. We discussed such things. So if I just click now click deploy, it will deploy it for me. That is one option that we saw to deploy from Studio directly to Cloud Hub. That is one. So that is what you see here, directly from Anypoint Studio to Cloud Hub. That is one way. The second way is using Runtime Manager. If you don't have access to the account, what you do is you right-click on the application here on the project, and you go to export, and then you come here to Mule and export it as deployable archive. It creates a jar file. So if I just click next, give it some name. Let's say I want to put it in the downloaders here, save. And we said here, we have to make sure attach project sources and include project modules and dependencies are checked. Otherwise, when you deploy it, if any of these are missing, Cloud Hub will not download them for you. So since it will not get them, it will not work. So your deployable archive has to download all necessary requirements, all necessary libraries, and archive them together, like zip them together. Then you upload that jar file. So if you click finish, now it creates a jar file for us, and that jar file you share it with a person who is going to deploy it to Cloud Hub, and they come to Cloud Hub and manually they deploy it. They come here, deploy application, give it something, some name, and do Cloud Hub. So, okay, this name doesn't work. Let's say, no problem. I will not declare it anyway. So give it a name. You specify the version. Now it doesn't know what version, what runtime version it is, because they are to upload the archive file, the jar file. Now let's go see in the download CS. So it has created, let me remove this and this not to confuse you. So it has, as you can see, it has created a jar file here, executable jar file. So this jar file, if you see its size, it is big because it downloads all necessary libraries, all necessary files for your application to run. So that's why it is 66 megabytes here. So this one, to deploy it, you come here, then you choose file, import file from, sorry, not import file from Exchange, upload file. Then I go here and select this. Now, after I do this, we specify again the same thing, the runtime version. Now we have to put it ourselves because it doesn't detect it, it may not detect it. We specify the worker size and the number of workers. And in addition to that, also under properties, if you have to add client ID and client secret also, you add them here. If it is from Studio directly, you just add them in the preferences. If you are to deploy the jar file, you have to add them here. We'll see that another time. So these are two ways. These ones we have seen so far. Deploying directly from Studio and also using Runtime Manager. But usually you don't have the account. One thing, you may not have the Endpoint Studio credentials at work. You may be a developer and other people could be responsible for taking care of the deployment. That is one thing. The other thing is also, usually the deployment phase, it is automated. Automated means you deploy it using some, to be automated, it should be programmatically, right? So you develop some application, you deploy it. Next time you make some modification to that application, it has to detect it itself. You should have some program that detects that it has been modified, and that new version, it has to deploy it itself programmatically. So to do that, we use Maven. So we use a Maven plugin. That is what we are going to talk about today. What is Maven? What do we use it for? How do we use Maven to deploy applications to Cloud Hub is what we are discussing. I have added a link for it here, but at a high level, let's see what Maven is and what it does. So if you come to any Endpoint Studio here, let's come here. So we have this project. Let me expand it. So this project, if you scroll down here, okay, a couple of things here. Where if you run this, if I run this project, the jar file, it creates a jar file under target. So that's one thing that you have to pay attention. Let me run it while talking about Maven. So I will run it here, and it will create the jar file here under target. The target is an output. What it does is it combines all necessary libraries together, and it creates a jar file that will be deployed, the deployable jar file. You can deploy that jar file by uploading manually if you want, or when you use Endpoint Studio also for deployment, it is just pushing that jar file. That's one point. But the other thing is, so Maven, we have this POM file here. Let me open it. Open with, let's see, yeah, this one. So this XML file, it takes care of the necessary dependencies and libraries for your project to work. So we are going to focus on this file today. What is this POM file? What does POM stand for and what is it doing, what are these group ID, artifact ID, and version, and so on. But at a high level first, let me show you. When we add any module here, you will see that module will get added here. And plus, in the POM file, that dependency, it gets added here. And Maven takes this POM file and downloads the necessary dependencies and plugins. We'll see what dependencies and plugins are. It downloads them to your local computer, and then when it creates an archive, it makes sure every necessary required version is there. So here, let me show you. Let's add, for example, let's add the database module. You see, database module is not here. It is not also here in the POM file. Let me, for example, search DB for database. As you can see, it says string not found because it is not added yet. Now I will add the database module from here to here. When I drag and drop it, then this one, it gets added to the POM file, to the pom.xml file. And also you will see it on the left here also added. Let's drag and drop it. I did that. As you can see, it got added here, database. You see here on the left, right? You can see. Also, if you come to your POM file, now I can search DB. Before it was saying string that is not available. Maybe it is not for DB. Let's see. Yeah, it is here. I didn't get it maybe because of the underscore, because of the dash. But anyway, it has been added here. And if you see for all dependencies, this is one dependency. So these dependencies are necessary libraries for your application to work. Like, for example, if you are connecting to a database, you should have some library that helps to connect to a database. And plus, the connectors to connect to MySQL database versus Postgres database and so on are different, right? So you see, here is one dependency. It says dependency, and there is group ID, artifact ID, and version. Another dependency here, and so on. Another dependency here, and so on. And the database dependency also, as you can see, has been, where is it? Database DB dependency has been added here. You see it here. And when we add the MySQL connector, for example, it has been added here because I added it before the class. You see it has been added here. If you don't add it yourself, then it will not be here. So this one, what does it mean? So having dependency group ID, this one MySQL artifact ID, this MySQL connector Java and version 8.0.3. Then Maven, what does it do? What it does is, if you go to the Maven MySQL connector, if you come here, the repository, so this is the public Maven repository. And there are different versions for MySQL connector, as you can see. So 8.0.3 means, if you come here, yeah, this one, it says 8.0.3.30, which means it is going to download this one. So it downloads this one. If you expand it, yeah, you see. So this one is in your program, in your Maven project, you add this one, this dependency tag. Then there is a group ID, artifact ID, and version. So group ID, artifact ID, and version, they are called coordinates, and they tell Maven what library to download, like under what category it is. The group ID is like high-level category, and under that category, the name of the library or the jar file, and then its version. So this POM file, when you see it, it gives Maven the details necessary information to download, to include in your library, in your application, so that your application works. So when you push your application to Cloud Hub, every necessary library gets bundled, gets downloaded, and gets bundled together, like you think, like a zip file and every necessary library gets added to it. And also this one, you see, let's see the target. If we expand the target now, when we target, okay. This one, target, okay, we'll get back to this one. Okay, so now let's see what Maven is at a high level and what it does. So it is used for project management. It takes care of building projects and downloading dependencies for us. So you can download, like for example, for MySQL connector, you can download the necessary library and add it to your project. One thing, when you do it manually, it is not convenient, it is time taking. The other thing is, next time your version, there is a new version, next time you have to use another new version. That means you have to do it manually yourself. However, if you use Maven, it gets automated. So when there are new versions also, it downloads the new versions itself. And dependencies are libraries or YAML files here we see. And we need to specify required dependencies within the POM XML file. So the necessary dependencies or the libraries to use, we specify them in the POM XML file. When we drag and drop connectors and the processors, then all necessary plugins and dependencies, they get added to pom.xml. And Maven takes this POM XML file and creates the project for us, deployable archive for us. And POM stands for object model. And that is the reason in the beginning, if you remember, in our class, in the beginning, we talked about in the setup, software setup here, we talked about installing Maven in addition to Endpoint Studio and other things, because MuleSoft needs Maven installation for taking care of the dependencies and plugins. So where does it get installed? In my case, here is a Maven, as you can see, Apache Maven 3.8.5. Yeah, I have it here, and let me show you how it downloads the different dependencies that we add into the pom.xml file. So it takes the pom.xml file, it checks which dependencies have been added there. Then these dependencies, it checks if they are available in the local repository. If you go under users, then your username, mine is here, there is a folder called .m2 folder, .m2, this one. This one is a local Maven repository. You see, I have 1.6 GB. These are dependencies and the libraries downloaded. So if I click here, if you go under repository, you see there are different repositories added here, the dependencies. So if you go MySQL, for example, this MySQL connector Java, you see the different versions. It has been updating it. When I select different versions, the different versions, they get downloaded to my local repository. So what Maven does is focus on this one. Maven, what it does is to build the project. First, it checks the specification, this dependency specification in the pom.xml file. Okay. Then after that, it checks if this is specified dependencies. It checks if they are in the local repository. The local repository, as we said, is .m2 folder. It checks them. If they are there, then it doesn't need to download them again. It uses them. So when it creates the archive, deployable archive, it adds them from this repository. If they are not there, then it connects to the remote repository, which is, we have this, you can see here, public Maven repository. It connects from here, and what it does is, it downloads them and adds them to here, to the local repository, so that it can use them next time. It doesn't need to download them again and again. So this is the public repository. We can also have private repositories, but that is the M2. That is the function of this repository. The .m2 folder. It contains the different dependencies and plugins that you have used so far. And when you are building a new project with new dependencies, if they are new dependencies, if it doesn't get them for in here, it downloads them. But if they are here, it doesn't need to download them. So that is how Maven works. But today, we will see Maven in detail. But today, particularly, we are going to see, so our goal today is how do we use Maven to deploy to Cloud Hub. So if you click this link, if you click this one, it will take you to here and deploy applications to Cloud Hub using the Maven plugin. So far, we have seen deploying using Anypoint Studio, as you can see here, and using Runtime Manager. There is also this Anypoint CLI, but commonly in production environments, Maven is used. So we are going to see how we can deploy using Maven. Please read this page. I have added the link for it in the slides. We will go see down here. You just add this into your home.xml file. See here, what does it say? In here, configure the Cloud Hub deployment strategy. Configure the Cloud Hub deployment strategy in your project's home.xml file. So you can deploy, redeploy means that, like update it, and undeploy, you delete it. This is automatically, programmatically. Your Mule application is using the Mule Maven plugin. Inside the plugin in element in your project's home XML file, configure your Cloud Hub deployment, replacing the placeholder values with your Cloud Hub information is here. So the placeholders are this one, for example, username. This is a $sign, curly braces. All of them are placeholders. Username, password, application name, and so on. So let's take this one. So if we see the pom.xml file again, pay attention here. So we have plugin here. We have plugins. We have one plugin, another plugin. We just have to plug in. So we'll copy paste that. So we come here. So we copy it. This is another plugin for deploying Cloud Hub. You come here, paste it. However, the placeholders, I have to replace them. So let me indent this by just clicking tab. Okay, so we have Mule version. The version is 4.4.0, as you can see it here. It says pom.xml Mule server 4.4.0. So I will replace this by 4.4.0. If the version, there is mismatch in the version, then it will not work. My username now is fish deck 2022. It will expire in a couple of days. My password is copy password. So I will put it here. How do you encrypt your password? Also, we discuss later. But let's first make sure you understand this. Step by step, we'll make it more real world. Application name. Let's give it any application name. If you see my runtime manager, what applications do I have? I have this one. Yeah, let's delete this one and we will just redeploy it. So the name is this API. So this one first, let me delete it. If you come to settings, go here, delete. Yep, delete. As you can see, it is not there anymore. It has been deleted. So that is the name that I am going to give it. So this placeholder, I will replace it by that. Next, the environment. My environment is training. I just have one environment. The sandbox, I renamed it training. As we discussed last time, if your environment type is not sandbox, is in the trial version, you will not be able to deploy your application. Like, for example, if you select the prod environment, it will not work. And there are region workers. Workers is like how many number of workers, as you can see, because when you try to deploy, there was workers by default, it is 1. For the trial version, it is 1. Worker version, last time we discussed it in the different different instances, horizontal and vertical scaling and cost considerations. We have these different worker sizes and EC2 instances. And if you scroll down also here, you can get all information here. And worker type, we have micro, small, medium, large, X large, double X large, and 4X large. So which are this one, but this naming is for Amazon, and this naming is for Cloud Hub. So you have to use this naming strategy. So I will just use micro. So come here to, this one, I will not the region, the worker type, put micro. Region also, you have to provide the region. Again, if I scroll down here, I have region here. US East 1, this is US East in North Virginia. We have also US East 2, it is located in Ohio, and so on. Let's just choose this one. So Amazon has different cloud computer centers, and these regions are the regions where the computers are located. So again, that one I will put yes East 1. Now we are done. We don't need this one. It doesn't have anything. But if you just leave it also, it should be fine. So now this one I can deploy it. Now I can programmatically deploy it. So what did we do? Let's repeat it again. We just copy pasted the code snippet is provided here. This one we copy pasted it, and we replace the placeholders. Mule version 4.4.0, my username, my password, application name, you give it any name. It should follow the naming conventions. And the environment, whatever environment you have, the region, workers, and this is workers is how many? Worker type is micro, small, and so on. That's it. So once we do that, then to deploy it, we use this command. Maven, which is MVN. I hope you are able to see it. Yeah. MVN clean deploy dash do mule deploy. We run this in the command line. So how do we do that? In our project, this is our project. To check its location, I can just right click here, then go down here to the bottom. There is properties. Then you see its location here. And to take you to that location, just click this one, show in System Explorer. When I do that, it takes me here. So here is the project. Now, if I click the project, you see the POM file is here. We have to run the command here. How do we run it? This part on the top, just right click on it and write CMD, the command prompt. It will bring command prompt. You can also open command prompt and change the path to here as well. If I do like this, it opens this window for me. You see the path, it shows the complete path here. And if I type D for Windows, for those of you who have Linux or Mac, I think LS or something should show you the list of the content of the folder. You see here, there is a pom.xml file. So you have to run your command where this pom.xml file is located. So once I have this, then I can bring this command and run it, which is Maven clean deploy d-d mule deploy. This case sensitive like that. So now it will deploy if we did everything correctly. Let me check the POM file and save it. There should not be any placeholder which is not filled. Username and password, application name, environment. Yeah. Okay. We will add more dependencies and other things we will see other times. I want to show you step by step. Today we just added the Cloud Hub deployment using Maven, and as you can see here, it is added as a plugin. You don't need to remember it, but just understand at a high level, it is added as a plugin they have provided here, and it is here we specify the username, password, environment, and so on. We specify under Cloud Hub deployment tag. There is Cloud Hub deployment tag here, which in this here. Okay, so we come here, and that's just I click enter. Now, what it is going to do is it is going to download all necessary dependencies, all necessary libraries specified in the file. This will take some time because it is going to download. So let's review this slide, what it is doing right now. So what it is doing is it takes this file, which is there in the folder. Maven takes this file, checks for the dependencies necessary, required libraries, and jar files. It checks if they are available in my local file. If they are available, it will finish faster. If they are not available, first it has to download them from the remote repository, which is from here, and add them to my local repo. And then all the necessary libraries and all the code necessary for the application to work, it bundles it together and creates the jar file. So let's see. So you see here, creating application. So probably here now, if you go to here, run time manager, since it is still bundling the required dependencies, you don't see anything here. Once it creates the jar file, then it will start pushing it, deploying it here, and you will start the status changing. You will see the status changing here. So yeah, it is still creating it. I want to show you when it shows up here, and then until it completes, we are going to answer a couple of other questions. Okay. So anyway, let's repeat this again. We are using Maven to deploy our application to Cloud Hub. Maven is used for project management rather than downloading different versions for your application. It takes care of the version updating, downloading, and so on. And you can use it also to deploy your application to Cloud Hub. And to deploy to Cloud Hub, how does it know which libraries to include in your deployable archive? It uses the pom.xml file. So if you delete your pom.xml file for some reason by error, then your project will not work. This one. You can also be asked how does your project, or where are the dependencies for your project added? They get added to the pom.xml file here. When you drag and drop, we drag and drop, but behind the scenes, the dependencies are getting added to the POM file, and from there, Maven is taking care of the whole life cycle, the project management life cycle for us. So this one, let's see, it is still creating Mule application. The first time it takes time. We come here, let me refresh it. Okay, it is not there yet. Okay. And yeah, remember it is in the local repo, it is .m2. It gets it from here. The more and more different varieties of projects you build, then the size of this .m2 folder will increase. If you are using a new dependency that for the first time, for example, if you have never connected to Salesforce, and today you are connecting to Salesforce, then the dependency, the necessary connectors, they will get downloaded from the remote repository and get added to your local repository. Yep. Now you see it will start. It says undeployed. It will change. So sometime in a moment it will change to deploy. So it was not there. At least this one you can see we see the application name. The status is undeployed, but it will start deploying after some time. Let's see here. It is still creating the application. And we can also see, go to that folder and see what it is creating. Under, you get it, the deployable archive, you get it under target. If you go to target, you see this one. It has created this executable jar file, which is 70 megabytes in this case. So it pushes. Once it creates it, once it bundles by including all the necessary plugins and the dependencies, it creates this jar file and it pushes this jar file. That is when we say it has been deployed. Let me refresh it. Okay, this one, it will change to deploying after some time. Now, until this status changes, let's answer another question from the homework. Or I can also ask you for here. So this application we said, what it does is it gets a query parameter called data, and the query parameter for data is a different data sets from W3C. You can get them under the main source resources here. We added this folder here. So it reads it using this class path colon /. It takes it to source main resources. Then we added the folder. We have to add the full path starting from the source main resources. The class path will be up to the source main resources. This folder name, as you can see, is the W3 schools. And this requested file is the attributes.query parameters.data. Then the extension, since it is the CSV, we have all of them are CSV files. And we are using the function readURL. And we have to specify the data type, where we said we have seen this multiple times. And here also, it creates a variable using the format. Then it changes it based on the format specified. If it is JSON, as you can see, it changes it to JSON. If it is XML, it changes it to XML. XML, we say it needs a root node. So I have to add, if I simply put payload here, it will not work. Rather, give it some root node name, colon, then your payload, you put it inside curly braces in this bracket. And we have CSV. We have also this default. I will ask you one question here. For the default, I have a message. The format is specified is not supported. It should give this message is how I have configured it here. So this one is running, we can test it. So to test it, we come to the interface, we have to get the exact path. It starts with API. Then in the implementation, we have one flow only. We say API key router generates flows equal to the number of endpoints, combination of resources and messages. We have one resource right now and one message, which is just get. So it is get message with W3 schools. So send a request here. I'm opening Postman. In the meantime, let's see if this one changes, the status of this one changes. Okay, it is still undeployed. It takes some time. Here also, it is still the status, as you can see, it is saying creating the application. So let's test this in Postman. I have this one, localhost 8081, then API, then W3 schools, then query parameters, data, orders or products, and format JSON, for example. So I'm saying here the product is data. Product is data. I need it in JSON format. Is what I'm saying. So from this data, it will take that and know here what data I need. So it will read products here, and then here, since I passing the query parameter format as JSON, it will create a variable, and in the choice router, it will go to here and convert it to payload and to JSON, and that should get the data in JSON format. So submit. You see here, I got it in JSON format. If I put CSV, I get it in CSV format. If I put XML, I get it in XML format. If I do JSON, this one, and this one rather than product, so let's see what other data set we have. Employees, for example. Employees, it will give me the employees data. Now I have two questions for you. This one is still taking anomalously long time. That's weird. Do I have some typo somewhere? Training. Did I write training? The right way? Yeah, I guess. Let's give some time. Okay, so I have one question. Now, in Postman, if I put here in the format rather than JSON CSV, let me show you the RAM specification again. These are the RAM specification supported formats I have put: JSON, XML, CSV. Now, here, if I specify HTML, for example, what will I get? Let me show you the flow. I can show you the choice router if you want. In the choice router, I have here, if JSON, transform it to JSON. If XML, transform it to XML. If CSV, transform it to CSV. Otherwise, the default I have put, this one, and this one is a placeholder to get the bus format. So, who can share their answer in the chat? This is very tricky, take time, by the way. JSON, okay, why JSON? Why should it give me in JSON? Because in the format I have put HTML. I didn't make in the default, if you are looking at the default, maybe I didn't put JSON as default. If I put it, yes. If I put it, I mean, still that has, yeah, why? Format not supported, HTML format not supported. Okay, Haptom, so at least that's good understanding. HTML format not supported, as you can see, yes. I mean, this HTML, you are thinking it will replace this by this string here, and then we have this format not supported. Okay, who else can try? Format not supported. Okay, let me tell you that this is not correct and think why. Or we can send the request and see. If I click send request, see it says bad request. Why is it saying bad request? Think again now. Okay, this one did it start. Not sure why. Taking time. Tested it before and it didn't take this long. Anyway, in the meantime, anyway, think about the response. Why it says bad request. Okay, good guys. So the reason is, if we just this one, if I come here and let's go to global configuration, in our router configuration, if we just uncheck this, it is going to go to this one. So you will get this response. HTML format not supported. However, in our configuration, we have enabled query parameter strict validation. What does it mean? It means if the query parameters you pass are not any of these for format or not any of these for data, then the router, it blocks it. It doesn't even go to it doesn't run the rest of the flows in the implementation. It will not go, it will not come to here. It just gets blocked here. And that is why directly it goes to bad request, which is in here. It goes directly to this one, and we get this error message. Yeah, so the reason is because we have enabled the query parameters strict validation. Perfect. That is, I hope you will not forget it. Probably I have the reason that this is taking some more time could be because it is running here. Let's stop it and see. I'm not sure. I will stop this. Okay, so that is one question. Another question. Such questions are, by the way, very important. Please understand them. Another question is, I will move this one to my second screen and make some modifications and come up with a question. So under global configuration, okay, we can do it here actually. So here, let's add auto discovery. And we said auto discovery, to enable auto discovery, we create an API instance in API manager. We get an ID from there and we add it to our implementation here. We add the ID. Then when we add the ID, then runtime manager and API manager will communicate, and the runtime manager will be able to download any policies we have added in API manager. So the question I want to ask you here is also another important question. Let's create, just type auto discovery. Now our API ID in API manager, it can be anything 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or whatever. Here in the flow name, which of these ones do I choose? Let's say, for example, we have 3 resources and 3 methods. In total, let's say we have 10 flows. With the main and console, let's assume we have 12 flows. So in this one, in this drop down, which of the flows do I choose? Right now we have just 4, right? We have the get WC schools flow, we have the implementation subflow, we have the API console, and we have the main flow. Let me show you which ones these ones are. So if we come here, we have this one, the top one, the key router, we have this one, and then we have this one, and then in the implementation, we have this one. So the question is, when we configure auto discovery in the flow, auto discovery, in the flow reference here, to which flow do we refer? Share in the chat your answers. Let me see if this one changes. Probably there is something that I didn't finish in the POM file. Otherwise, I tested this before the class. And it was working fine. Okay, let me see responses. Main, maybe the keyboard. Okay, yeah. Main, yeah. Because the main is the entry point. See, this one is like if you have a house, this is the front gate. This is the front gate to your application, the main, the API key router. Then it routes it. If it is an error, it routes it to the appropriate error type, to the different flows. If it works, if the request is appropriate, then it routes it to the appropriate implementation. You can have multiple such implementations. Right now, we just have this one flow. So yes, it should be main. Remember that too. So global, the global element is create auto discovery. This one should reference the main one, whatever dash main. It should be that one. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I have another important one. I don't know why this one, important topic. I don't know why this one is taking so long. Probably I will stop it and start over. Yeah, let's do like that. Probably it is because my input studio was running. That's one is taking forever. So I will kill it. I killed it, and I will remove it from here also. This one is incomplete. As you can see, this jar file, if you just download it here by clicking this name, is exactly the same as what you have here. And he removed it from here, but it was that jar file, it was under target. Once I stopped the deployment, it deleted it. Okay, let's delete this and do again. Okay, now this one, let me make sure it is not running. Okay, so we say to go to its location. If you don't know where exactly it is located, right click here, go to properties, it will take you here, and with this one, it will bring you here. Just double click it. It should be where your POM file is located. So here, just click CMD. Oh, by the way, let me show you second option also. So just here in the bottom, the other way you can do is you come here, you type CMD. This one will be under username. The path here, if you just type dir, it is not in that location. You don't see the POM file here. Rather, it takes you to the your username. Under user it is here. By default, it is here for me. So to take it to the path I need, what I do is this one, right? Click here, copy this path, copy it, Control C, come to here. Then for changing paths, there is a command called cd. Cd means change path, change directory, or change folder. Directory means folder. Paste it here. Then it will take me to that location. See, now if I type dir here, directory, you see our pom.xml file is here. So we type Maven mvn clean deploy uppercase mule deploy. You don't need to remember this. You can get it from the website. Here it is. You can just copy paste it. Let me click enter. I'm surprised why it got stuck. Probably now, as you can see here, it says about to fetch required dependencies for as artifact. So and looks be going faster, I would say, probably. Deploying artifact, okay, creating. It was stuck here before. Okay, until we see it here in Runtime Manager, we will answer a couple of other questions. Probably I will take 10 or 15 more minutes today because tomorrow I have a guest and we will not have class. So let's answer a couple of other questions now. So we answered this one, right? Where we discussed about strict validation. Now we have this question. Question number 3. What are the different ways you can deploy your implementation to Cloud Hub when we use them? So we have seen directly from Anypoint Studio. We have seen using Runtime Manager. Now we are looking at Maven. And if you don't have permission to directly deploy from Studio, you may create the jar file and share the jar file, and those who have access to the account, they can deploy it. But usually in production environments, best practices, we use Maven for automating, for deployment, redeployment, and also undeployment. That is question number 3. Question number 2, what are JSON thread protection and XML thread protection policies used for? Who can answer this one? Question number 2. Do you remember this one? Question number 2. Okay, let me see this one if it has come in. Not yet. Okay. Yes, the JSON XML and JSON threat protection they are used to protect inflated or nested JSON. Yeah, that's great, Hapton. So in your JSON, if you have in your request, if you have added unnecessary data by nesting it or adding more key value pairs beyond those specified, then it blocks it and you get an error message. So it is one way to protect your application. That's good. Yep, this one is kind of, yes, now you see, it is maybe because Endpoint Studio was running before. Okay, perfect. Now I'm happy. You see it here deploying. And you see it here also. From creating, it has changed to these things. So for us, it was saying creating application. Before it was stuck on the search from the bottom. Now we see starting application, checking if application has started. So it is checking it. So when it starts, when the deployment is successful, it will tell us that it has been deployed successfully. Okay, perfect. That's what I wanted to show you. Let me see if I have another question that I want to ask you. Okay. Okay, okay, let's answer a couple of other questions from here. So we have question number 4. What is API auto discovery? When and why do we use it? I hope all of you should understand this by now. If you don't understand it, please let me know so that I can explain it maybe in a different way. Who can raise their hand and just talk what we use API auto discovery? What is our API auto discovery? What are the steps? Why do we need it? When do we use it? We'll go today up question number 5, and the rest we'll discuss them another time when we are waiting for our application to deploy. So what is API auto discovery? When do we use it? Anyone? So yeah, visit the slide. This is the steps. The API auto discovery, guess let's discuss it again. Visit it again and again until you understand it very well. So what are the steps? So our API life cycle management, it starts from Design Center. In Design Center, we create the specification. It could be with RAML, usually it is with RAML, but there is also another one called Open API specification. Anyway, you create your specification, your contract here in Design Center. From Design Center, I hope you are visualizing this, and we push it to endpoint exchange so that it becomes discoverable for people in your organization and also outside the organization if you want to make it public. Then after that, we come to the implementation phase, the actual building phase. We build it in Endpoint Studio. So we can import the RAM specification either from here or from here and create our flows, our connectors, connect to databases, test it, make sure it is working, and so on. From there, if we push it to Runtime Manager, then it comes here, However, still this one will be accessible to the public. You cannot apply, for example, client ID, client secret, security-based policies, transformation-based policies, compliance-based policies, or other kinds of policies you can't apply. So how do we apply policies? We use API Manager for that. In the instance in API Manager, we create an instance in API Manager either by using the specification from endpoint exchange or even by uploading it. And then when we do that, it creates an ID of that API instance. At that time, that API instance is still inactive and registered. Then when you take the API ID from API Manager and add it to Endpoint Studio with auto discovery, also add the client ID and the client secret of the environment that you are pushing your application to. Now, if you add any policies in your API Manager, Runtime Manager and the API Manager can communicate, and Runtime Manager checks what policies have been applied for the API with this ID. Then it downloads policies, and then now there are policies. Even if you run it locally in your computer now, if you have added auto discovery, even if you run it locally, then it still yes, thank you, Yatmul, thank you. Yes, still it will need it will apply the policies, the applied policies, even when you deploy it locally in your computer. So that's it, this one. Yes, as you can see now, it has been deployed. See, we see it deployed here. But I wanted to show you another important concept. I will delete this again and show you the next phase of what I want to show you today. So yes, delete it and we'll deploy it again. Now, the thing is still in your file here, if you see in our pom.xml file, we are adding our username and the password. And that is not good practice. Like, for example, if I want to push this to GitHub, then I am sharing my username and the password, and that is not a good practice. Or even your, you want your username and password to be secure. So one way to do that, there are a couple of them we'll see in the future, but today I want to show you, rather than adding username and the password here, the username and the password, you add it into your Maven setting file. Let me show you here. So again, my Maven installation is here, Apache Maven 0.8.5. This is what I installed when I first installed it in April. So if you come here under configuration, there is settings file. This settings file, I will open it, and please visit this one and read the commented description. There are different sections. Today we are going to just focus on the servers. You see here, server tag started here and in this here, and your username. You see here, username, password. You can add them here and just give it whatever ID you want. And that ID, you reference it in your pom.xml file. So this one, when you make any deployments or when you share your application, your username and your password, it stays here in your local file in the installation, in the Apache Maven installation. Let's do that. So how do we do it? You can come here, see it from the documentation. Down here, we come here, we add the server tag. So under the servers, we want to create a server tag. Copy it, come to here, your settings.xml in your Maven installation under servers. Basically, it is uncommenting this one and replacing username and password and giving it some ID. But this comment, I will just leave it there for reference for other time and copy paste this. You can give it whatever name you want, my endpoint credentials. I think this is good ID, that is fine. Now, from my pom.xml file, I will remove username and password, remove them, and come here and replace these two lines. Now your pom.xml file, how is Maven going to know what username and password? Because you can have different usernames and passwords for different environments based on, like, are you pushing it to Cloud Hub, or are you pushing it to hybrid environment or on-premise and so on? So you can have multiple server configurations here, server tags. So this one, how does Maven know which one you are using? You give it this ID. So I copy this ID, bring it here. So in here, what I do is I create server tag and paste the ID here. That's it. Now, if I share this with people, if people get my project, if I push my project to GitHub, they will not get my username and password, because my username and password is just in my Maven installation. It will stay in my computer. So again, the username and the password, we removed them from here and pasted them here under server tag. You can have multiple server tags, and they should be, all of them should be under servers. You have servers here, proxies, plugin groups. There are plugins also. Let's see, what are the different tags we have here? Proxy, servers, profiles. We'll see profile, and so on. But just for today anyway, we want to understand, if you want to push your application to GitHub, how do you hide, how do you make sure you don't include your username and password? You add it to your Maven installation, to the setting.xml configuration. And this ID is important. This ID, you take it and add it here under your Cloud Hub deployment tag. Just use server tag, put the ID, close that. Now let's try to deploy it again. So I have removed it from runtime manager. As you can see, it doesn't exist there. So again, I will come to that pom.xml file. It is here. Under target, I don't have, okay, this one. Let's see. Let me delete this one. I just want to start from scratch. So here, the MD, because in our pom.xml file, we don't have username and password. So it should get it from the settings.xml in the Maven installation. So again, Maven, clean deploy -d mule deploy. That's what we do. Let's see if it gets the username and password from the settings.xml. About to fetch required dependencies, it says here. Okay, let's see what insights we can get from what it is doing here. It's saying there is some issue somewhere. It should be fine, at least for our purpose for today. As you can see, creating application. Till it comes here, we can answer one question. Question number 6. What are the functions of API key router? API key router, if you come here, so this is API key router. What are the functions of API key router? Who can mention 2 or 3 functions? What is API key router? Is it for? Until this deploys. Once we see this deployed, then that will be all for our base class. It's creating the application. Because I removed, if you remember, I deleted the jar file. Since I deleted the jar file, it is going to create it again from scratch by bundling all necessary dependencies under target folder. See, it is creating it, it has created it here. Now it will push this one cloud. Okay. Yeah, share your answers. share your answers for this question number 6. So let me tell you, for example, one question you may encounter. So if you remember okay, let me share this one. I think one of you sometimes shared this file. It is a good one. I mean, you don't need to remember all of the status codes, but at least the commonly used ones, it is good to remember them. This one. And if you see there was the let's see, 401. Yes, unauthorized. See status code 401. So here you see 200 is success, 100 is just information, 400 is client error, 400, 300 related to 3 x-axis redirection says, and 5x is server error. There are different server errors, but if you just focus on 4xx client error, there is bad request. If the request is sent is not compliant, there is also unauthorized. Unauthorized means if you have to add username and password or something, if you are not authorized to access it, you get this error message. And when you try to deploy also an application, if you don't add your username and password, then it will try to deploy it, but there is no username and password. You will get this one, error 401. So if you get error 401, the first thing you have to check is go to the POM file and make sure username and password are added here. If there is server tag here, then make sure this ID of the server tag and this ID of the server tag with username and password match, and make sure username and password are correct. If any of these are mismatched, the error you get will be error 401, unauthorized. Okay, perfect. Cool, yes. So API kit router, it has 3 or 2 functions. Go to interface, yeah, here. So the first thing is when we create the flow from the YAML specification, it is the API kit router that creates the flow for us. It creates minimal flow based on the YAML specification or the any specification that they are using. That's number 1. Number 2 is once the flow is created, and when you send requests, it validates if the requests are appropriate. If they are not, like for example, if you add additional query parameters or headers, and if strict query parameter validation is added, then it will block it and will get an error. If your request is appropriate, then it routes it to the appropriate flow. So, like for example, in this case, it is going to send it to this flow reference, and this flow reference will reference this implementation. If you have multiple flows, it makes sure it is routed to the appropriate flow. Yes, that's it. Let's see if this is, yes, this one, as you can see again, it has been deployed. So today we saw 2 ways to deploy your Mule application to Cloud Hub using Maven. One thing, by adding all the username, password, environment, worker type, region, and so on to the pom.xml file, to this one. We also talked what pom.xml file is. The other way is username and password. Rather than adding them here to the pom.xml file, what we did is we just added server tag, and this ID, this one should match with the ID of the server tag here in your settings.xml in your Maven installation, and you have to add the username and the password. So that's what we discussed. I hope you liked it. let me see. Yes, that one happened. We are going to see how to encrypt our credentials also. So that's a good question. Secret properties also, we are going to see how it works, how we can add it, when do we use it, what are its benefits, and so on. Yeah, it is quite wide actually. But okay, the other thing, guys, what we have seen so far really should make you in a safe position to take the certifications. Any of you, when you take certifications, please share in the Telegram group so that it can inspire others also. Take certifications, craft a resume, start applying. Also, watch, you will get different kind of real-world projects on YouTube. Also watch, and based on that, learn how you should craft your resume and stuff. But we are going to continue this one. We will add unit test. Maven also will see in detail to make you like a developer with a couple of years of experience rather than an entry-level developer. It is good if you are comfortable enough to create your application end-to-end independently. That helps you to ace interviews and be comfortable at work also. But by now, we have covered more than enough concepts for the certification. There are a couple of miscellaneous things here and there that I plan will cover them in the future. But for the certification, what we have covered so far is more than enough. Or when you do the practice questions and so on, you will know also which certification is. Can I take the certification with passport identification? Yes, you can, sure. You can take certification with passport identification. I use my driver's license, but passport identification is also good. So yeah, guys, if you don't take the certification, if you don't read it now and start, if you just postpone it, you will forget what you have learned so far, and your investment will not be effective. So try to work on it, focus as much as possible. And the other thing is also, you remember concepts more when you discuss them with people, or when you talk to them, to people, or when you teach them. So if possible, if you can discuss, like for example, if you are comfortable, Hapton, for example, if you have a couple of friends or one or two friends who are also learning MuleSoft, just have your own time that is comfortable for you guys to meet and talk about MuleSoft, about what you have read, about the class concepts, or how you understood it, how you see it, and so on. Or you can also interview each other. That is how you become comfortable. You have to make sure you practice, really practice helps.